Bill Maher brought a right-wing podcaster named Patrick Bet-David onto his Club Random show. And there was a moment that I saw circulating that I want to play and then discuss. And it's a moment where a drunk Bill Maher asks PBD, Patrick Bet-David, who he's going to vote for. And his response is indicative of a larger phenomenon that I want to discuss. He strangely squirms and avoids directly answering the question for a while, even though, and I've seen a good bit of his podcast, he's a Trump fan for sure. But again, he avoids saying that for some time. Here it is.
I'm always about this. I do not.
You're supporting Biden, though.
Of course, because we only get two choices. I mean, what is so hard to understand about bad and worse?
They forced America to take the vaccine, Bill. 70% Americans took the vaccine and they didn't want to take it. A lot of them didn't want to take it.
Wait a second. When did the vaccine come about? Under Biden? No, under Trump.
No, it didn't. It came 2 days after election was over with. 2 days after election was over with, Pfizer announced it was not under Trump.
Oh.
They intentionally kept the vaccine after the election, so they gave the victory to
right. But Trump was not Trump was like, I created the vaccine.
I don't disagree with you. I agree with you. He takes it as a victory. I'm on the same page with you.
Okay,
but there's a difference, though. Yeah, this is the one difference, Bill.
But
May I say this? May I say this? And then push back. Here's the difference. You know what the difference is? How many times have you heard Trump get on stage and brag about warp speed? We saved 100 million people's lives, right?
Can I just ask you a simple yes or no question?
Yeah.
Not exactly yes or no, but who are you voting for?
I'm voting for whoever allows me to make decisions more and not somebody that decides what's good for me or not.
Bro, we're not in a debate here.
No, the left
I asked you a yes or no.
Vaccine.
Wait a second.
The state of California and the industry you're in force you to take the vaccine.
So you don't know who you're voting for?
I'm voting for whoever allows me to have more freedom with the choices I make.
And you don't know that yet?
It's definitely not going to be Biden.
Well, then it would be Trump, wouldn't it?
If it's between the two choices?
What? But look at you.
Are you kidding me? It's not even a close call, by the way.
But the fact that you just can't own it is very weird, man. You know, this like, who are you voting for? Well, the Constitution says it's two words, Trump, Biden. I'm voting for Biden. I'm owning that. Do I think he's perfect? No.
But I don't think it's like that.
Not even,
I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's like that.
Well, just say you're for Trump.
If a person watches my...
I don't dislike you for your... I don't dislike...
Bill, if somebody watches my podcast, they're going to know who I'm voting for.
Well,
if somebody watches a podcast, they're going to sit there...
But how odd that you can't just say it then.
Because to me, I'm voting based on values. I'm not voting based on...
Okay, but we know what the values are of Biden and Trump and their policies are. We know everything about them.
The left is about force. The right is about choice.
So there's obviously a lot there that we could do whole other segments on. The right being about freedom and the left about force is silly. And quick plug, if you do want to see a bunch of PBD's ideas and stances like that dismantled, David Pakman appeared on his PBD podcast and did a great job of doing just that. So you can find that on Patrick Bet-David's channel. But I want to focus on something different about that clip because I've spent years now arguing with people over what either side stands for, and freedom actually being a principle that the Democratic Party much more upholds, and the vaccine stuff, my goodness, we've gone over so many times. The anti-vax people seem uninterested in hearing it out. But I have been wanting to address this I'm above your traditional labels and have found this enlightened way to approach all politics sort of thing, because it's becoming increasingly really popular. And you understand why people feel good articulating that and identifying with that. And that response reflects it so much. I'm not voting for Trump. I'm voting for the values that I align with based on the principle at the core where I resonate. Yeah, okay, who are you going to select on the dang ballot? We all, based on our values, make these decisions. I'm asking you about the decision after you assess your values and how they align with different candidates. And I have people in my life who like to say, oh, I'm just smack dab in the middle on everything, and I don't lean towards one party. I'm just independent, floating in the middle, ooh. Which isn't exactly, to be clear, what PBD articulated. He's willing to eventually say, yeah, I think he's willing to say I'm on the right for Trump, but his hesitancy to say that up front is rooted in this popular way of approaching politics. And there's this whole cottage industry of people who are very clearly partisan, very clearly advocating for one party, but would deny that until the end of time. Now, I'm completely detached from favoring anyone or any party, but I just happen to upload only right-wing videos. And I think it's a fundamentally misleading way of discussing politics. And I think sometimes it comes from a good place. For example, PPD answers, I'll vote for whoever is at the consciousness that doesn't allow for force, or because he doesn't want to be reduced to just simply another Trump supporter. And I get that. And people on the left will say, well, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. Maybe Dean Phillips or Marianne Williamson or an independent candidate. Obviously, Trump's bad, but I don't like Biden, because they don't want to be reduced to just another middle-of-the-road Democrat. And again, I get that. But if you clearly support an individual, I think you have to be intellectually honest enough to say, I'm voting for this person and here's why others should too, if you're confident enough to try to compel others. And in a moment when the Republican Party has gone so far off the deep end and Trump poses a threat to the foundation of our democracy, I think I, at least, have the responsibility to, and many do, not to just passively indicate I'm voting for Biden, but to aggressively encourage others to analyze the facts of the situation and come to that same conclusion. And this brings me to a quote from a Holocaust survivor, Elie Wiesel. And in his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, he said, quote, "We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." And so what does that mean? Well, to be clear, it doesn't mean within the political context you sacrifice facts or truth for party or side. It means that especially in a position like mine where I'm covering politics in front of an audience, you got to be clear. And I think in your personal lives too, regardless of if there's an audience, be clear and transparent about when the facts have led you to be motivated to clearly advocate for one candidate over the other or one party over the other. So in this current moment, I'm not going to do a gazillion stories about how Trump is a threat to democracy, but then go on some podcast and be like, no, I'm actually not into this whole left-right paradigm or Republican-Democrat paradigm. I think they're just all horrible and the same, and I just pick the truth. No, I've picked the truth, and that has led me to, honestly, being able to say we need to come out in large numbers in favor of Joe Biden Democrats in the next election to protect our freedoms, our Constitution, hopefully to get some more of those solid policies we've been seeing in recent years. There's nothing admirable about rejecting all labels because it induces a feeling of enlightenment when to unite and energize a movement around a common goal for good, we need a form of identification, some common way we associate. I've had a bunch of conversations with people who don't vote because they've heard this over and over, these enlightened centrist talking points about how it's all just meaningless political noise and maybe one day we'll get a party that's above it all and could just pick logic, just pick the best. It's like the Andrew Yang. We're just going to pick the pragmatic, common sense policy. Yeah, that's kind of what we're all debating about, guys. And so people feel like I don't want to engage in partisanship, and then that ends up making them disengage and not vote. It's easy to disengage. It is, because to engage can cause tension with those who disagree. To engage requires you to research and fact check your beliefs and go out on a limb and then feel let down when things don't go the way you had hoped. What's hard is to realize sometimes there is a correct side of history. It wasn't admirable, for example, to be right in the middle on civil rights. They can have some rights, I guess. We can split the difference between the two sides here. No. And so be bold and then be proud to identify yourself some type of way. Now, this of course doesn't mean there aren't huge criticisms of both sides. There are, of course. Plenty of people, for example, who identify as on the left make me crazy. But simply equating both sides just because there are two and because each side has their issues is a disservice to people. And I'll note that, as I mentioned, the Democratic Party keeps choosing its most moderate members to lead it. So the idea that both parties are equally succumbing to the tendency to sprint in opposite extreme directions is ridiculous. Biden was the most moderate candidate in the 2020 primary, and he won the primary. Democratic voters are often keeping a little bit too centrist Democrats in power for my taste. It used to be cinema, for example. Whereas the Republican Party has been consumed by its extreme faction, controlled by its extreme faction, and most of the quote-unquote moderates just go, yes, we're good with whatever you want, MAGA. So who's making it to positions of power? That's always the question you have to ask. And again, the Democratic voting base doesn't choose extremists like the Republican base does. So equating both sides because both sides have their problems is actually really dangerous. And right now in the pro-democracy versus anti-democracy clash that we're in, where one party is choosing the guy as their presidential nominee who tried to block the peaceful transfer of power through multiple allegedly illegal schemes and is now running saying he wants to terminate the Constitution, the government should come down hard on media outlets he doesn't like, his political opponents should be locked up, etc. And on one side, and on the other side, I should say, you have a guy who respects the Constitution and our democracy, not to mention all the historic pieces of legislation and stunning economic recovery. Yeah, there's a clear, correct side of history, so get on it. Criticize your side when necessary, of course. Hold them to account, but be honest when your analysis of the facts have led you to advocate for a candidate or party, which is what I try to do. And instead of trying to recreate the social infrastructure that we've created to describe political ideas and sides in this new way, and I'm about the consciousness of the many, uplifting the lack of oppression for the few. I don't know. Just honestly operate within the paradigm that people commonly use. Let me know what you think of all that. Lots you can respond to. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can become a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership.